Sir Alex himself, quite a few times, used to say management is someone else's word. I call it psychology.
So the managerial conversation remains the number one talking point in the Northwest. We got Ruud van Nistelrooy preparing for a Europa League encounter while Ruben Amorim continues to impress on the continent. We're going to chat about all of that while looking at Alejandro Garnacho, Nasser Mazraoui, a Greek night out in Manchester, and much, much more. It is, of course, your latest episode of The Theatre of Red. Ruud van Nistelrooy has forever solidified his role in continuing the Premier League's most drawn fixture against Chelsea, with the Dutchman maintaining his unbeaten record as interim manager ahead of a Europa League outing against PAOK before a final outing against Leicester and then the imminent arrival of Mr. Ruben Amorim in Manchester. Alongside me today to discuss a busy week in the Northwest is the man behind the exquisite artwork for everything you see on the Theatre of Red across website and podcast, the owner of United Arts and a lifelong Red, Mr. Reza Pedramnia. How is everything today, my friend?
Everything is great. Thank you for having me on. I've been following your work for a couple of years, Shaun. That's initially how we started talking on the socials, and I know you only do quality work. You don't just churn out stuff for the sake of it. So for you to invite me here, it's a genuine pleasure.
I suppose people will make an assumption there's going to be a brown envelope handed to you afterwards, but that is not the case, people. This is all totally authentic work. And before we land on the football, I want to spend a bit of time focusing on something that is very, very close to myself. Obviously, for anybody that's followed the podcast will know that I have done quite a lot of work with the Manchester United Foundation. And I want to touch on the Manchester Munich Memorial Foundation and your part in the most recent charity event, alongside the likes of Paddy Crearand, Brian Cade, John O'Shea, much more. Just for those unaware, this is an initiative that's a little over 6 years old. And simply put, they just want to give something back. It's now a registered charity aiming to raise funds for a variety of charities in 3 cities which were affected by the 1958 crash. You're looking at Manchester, Munich, Belgrade. We have the ultimate aim of preserving the legacy of the Busby Babes for future generations. It's a remarkable event, a remarkable setup, and as always, it is facilitated by a group that truly inspire generations for years to come. How did you find the experience during mid-October, Reza?
The experience has been fantastic, and initially the way it started was back in February. I felt like I want to give something back. The last couple of years since I've been publishing my artwork on the socials has been fantastic. The United family has been very receptive and very kind to me. So I felt like I want to give a little something back. So around the time of the Munich anniversary, I did 2 portraits, one on Duncan Edwards and one on the Busby Babes. And I put them on the website, and I decided to give all the profits that come from the sales of them to the foundation. So I plugged it a little bit, obviously, through the socials, and it went pretty well, and managed to raise a few £100 for them, which I gladly sent to them, and I've kept that as an ongoing thing. So at any point, anybody who decides to buy any of these 2 pieces, from since last February up to as long as they're on the website, I'm giving all the profits to charity. So that's initially how it started. And then in the summer, I was approached by one of the ladies who's associated with them, Miss Melissa Moore. And she asked me if I want to donate a little something to the auction, to the dinner gala that they're holding at Old Trafford in October, so they can raise some more money for the foundation and help homeless children and disadvantaged youth, both in Manchester and in Munich. And I was more than happy to do that. So I donated some work, and I went along for the event as well. It was fantastic. It was really great being among obviously the club legends. And one thing that I particularly really love about it, I mean, I know the phrase United family gets thrown around a lot, but it genuinely was a family effort. The whole atmosphere, how everybody pulled together to raise something for a good cause. It truly was fantastic, and it was an honor to have been a part of it. Overall, I think we raised just over £20,000 for the foundation, which was fantastic. And yeah, we hope to continue with it.
That's absolutely phenomenal. Even looking at your socials and the amazing photographs that you uploaded and all of the range of work that you're providing, this is all going to the very, very best of cause. And they do so totally off their own back. It truly is a wonderful group of individuals that are completing this. And like I said previously about the Manchester United Foundation, for any interested Reds that want to get forward, this is something that I'm going to link in all of the information for this podcast. By all means, check it out afterwards. Nobody is asking me to do this. I'm doing this because it deserves to get as much traction as it possibly can. So it's great Reds like Reza and all of these individuals, they get a bit of recognition for what they're doing, and you can help. But on from that and on to the football, I want to look at Chelsea and I want to look at the inevitable fallout from yet another draw, Reza. Ultimately, it was an uninspiring outing. It lacked any real quality. In many ways, I think the affair really highlighted something that I've been saying for quite some time about the two of them, and it's that there's a very comparable Jekyll and Hyde credential of both sides. And even though United did very little to inspire any form of confidence on the day, without real form of quality, it was a game that we probably still should have won. Now, for two sides that have aspirations for perennial Premier League competitiveness, just what did you take away from yet another draw from the sides and something that really didn't inspire a lot of optimism?
Honestly, Sean, it was pretty much more of the same. I know everybody was expecting the new manager bounce that we kind of got with the previous game against Leicester. But personally, I didn't feel that there's going to be a massive change. I mean, you know how much hate Erik ten Hag was getting for his tactics and his setup and everything. But were we really that much different against Chelsea? The same issues persisted in my mind. Our main issue right now is not being able to convert any chances. Goal scoring is the main issue. We had that under Eric, and obviously it's not going to get solved, with a couple of games after he's gone. Plenty of chances, like you said. We could have comfortably won the game, but it's just not there. I mean, there are notable individual performances that we can talk about, but aside from that, as a team, we're still very much lacking. I don't know if it's a psychological issue. Clearly, obviously, we haven't had a decent run at all, and that hurts the confidence. But this is going to take a while to sort out. Van Nistelrooy, as fantastic as he is, for the fans and obviously for as a bit of a morale boost, perhaps for the players as well. I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference because, again, psychologically, they know a new manager is coming in, and I just don't know how much response they're going to get out of Ruud for these next few games. So, on paper, it looks like a straightforward. I hesitate to say easy wins, but at least decent results on paper. But it hasn't been the case at all this season against any kind of an opposition. With Chelsea in particular. Again, how different are we actually from Chelsea? On paper, they have a fantastic squad. They haven't been exactly amazing either. Literally, in my mind, that the only difference between us and Chelsea is the goal difference. And who's providing goals for Chelsea at the moment? It's Cole Palmer. So if you take out Cole Palmer and his goals and assists and put that in our team, we're suddenly talking about a whole different vibe around the team. Our league position would be a little bit different. We still have a lot of issues, but I think we all be talking a lot more positively about everything that's going on. So if we can solve the goal scoring issue and get the confidence back in our forwards, I think we could slowly start seeing changes. But until then, I think it's going to be more of the same pretty much. And, even with the new manager coming in, he's got his work cut out for him. And I'm glad he's kind of mentioning that already throughout, the press conferences that he's given and while he's still in Portugal. He is trying to get the fans to perhaps adjust their expectations a little bit, because we've seen all this before. So I think it's going to be more of the same. And the Chelsea game didn't really change anything for me.
It's an unusual one because you look at West Ham, you see a side that should have been put away comfortably within the opening 30 minutes. Ample opportunities that you could nearly lose count of. You fast forward to Leicester in the Carabao Cup, and as Diogo Dalot said after the game, nothing changed. Nothing was done differently, tactically, structurally. It's just they put the ball in the back of the net against Leicester. You're absolutely right in what you're saying about Chelsea with Cole Palmer, because that is what I've gauged upon in the last few weeks, that the fundamental differences between Manchester United and Chelsea is that they have a fit and firing Cole Palmer who is orchestrating absolutely everything. And that's been the fundamental difference, I believe, because when you look at the likes of Bruno Fernandes, who is so often our outlet and our catalyst for creativity and for goal production, it doesn't necessarily come as much of a surprise that he has endured his worst possible start to a season in a Manchester United shirt. And that goes hand in hand with the underperforming attack. When you can look at Manchester United and you can say that they've nearly scored more goals in the Carabao Cup than they have in the Premier League, it just highlights the deficiencies that are there. It's not necessarily, as I've said previously, about a lack of chance creation, because there's so many big opportunities being missed by this football team. Ultimately, a lack of cutting edge in the final third, which has really, really been put into the focus, and it's really being highlighted, not only across Sky Sports and mainstream media, but also by your usual suspects on social media on a weekly basis. And that takes me to something that I want to speak about, because ultimately from that draw, I think a large takeaway was the immediate social agenda aimed at Alejandro Garnacho. It comes down to this inevitable necessity for media and those usual social suspects that I make mention to, pointing the finger of blame at anybody, whether it's a player, whether it's a coach, or whether it's a manager. It always has to be somebody's fault. At 20 years of age, I think it's fair to say that we have a very special player on our hands, an obvious talent. He's already possessing a catalogue of memorable moments and goals. Admittedly, I'll be the first to obviously put my hand up and say that he can frustrate, and his decision-making in the final third requires work. But Reza, what youngster doesn't require this? I know people like to rewrite history. We are old enough to remember the early days of Cristiano Ronaldo. And despite what people want to try to say now, it certainly was not all plain sailing in the opening few seasons of Cristiano Ronaldo. What is your take on Garnacho and the level of criticism that has started building around the player?
It is very, very sad. It is very sad that this is happening. I mean, like you said, that he's literally just turned 20 years old. And it reminds me of something that Sir Alex had mentioned a few times back in the day, where with a young person, you can nurture the talents and you can teach them things, but the one thing that you can't give them is an old head. So we need patience, and this kind of all comes back to our squad not being equipped enough to accommodate young players and allow us to nurture them into the team. Personally, I think he was kind of thrown into the team out of desperation last season. We had a severe lack of options. Rashford out of form. We were just looking for somebody to kind of galvanize the team. Now, I'm not saying he was nowhere near ready, but we should have taken our time kind of with implementing him into the team, especially at that time when again morale was low and the results weren't going our way. And I think we became too reliant on him, and he did provide that some great moments of magic, and he really helped the fans find their voice in certain games as well, and he gave everyone like a little bit of hope. But as we saw towards the end of the season, he started burning out, and that's never a good sign. I remember back in the day, the way we used to bring the younger players into the team was that we always had a senior player ahead of them. We had that with Ronaldo. We've had him with countless other players throughout our history, where you're not reliant on them. You let them play and learn at their own pace. So there is always somebody ahead that they can watch and learn, in their position, who's more senior and has been there and has been and done that and can guide them through. But we don't have that at the moment in our squad. The one person that he took over was pretty much Anthony. So we have a £90 million winger who's supposed to be at a different level to him, but ironically he's the one that's had to be benched for Garnacho to take over. So I don't think that that's helping him at all. And obviously, when the results aren't going our way, the fans are going to get impatient. And like you said, everyone's just going to start pointing fingers at somebody. Sadly, it is what it is. It is something that needs to be looked at as well in terms of obviously improving the squad. So players like this can improve in a better environment. I mean, we're looking at Kobe Minu as well. Some people argue that okay, but he's settled in, but not everybody's going to be working at the same pace. Not everybody's going to be mature enough at a certain age. We are lucky that Minu has hit the ground running, but how many young players at his age actually do that? That's why we were saying that he's a bit of a phenomenon and he's a generational talent. Right now, Garnacho is a huge prospect. We've seen his best moments is usually when he comes off the bench as an impact sub. And if we were in a position to have a more senior player, I think that would be the best thing for him at the moment. But sadly, we are not in that situation. So I just hope he keeps his head down, he keeps going, and he ignores all the hate that's coming towards him from a very small portion of the fan base, you have to say.
That's the point that just worries me so much, is the portion that comes there. There's so many of them we'll say on social media, on Twitter, that have such a large captive audience that are often juvenile. Youngsters are very impressionable with what they read and what they hear, and this can often breed such stagnant toxicity. You've touched upon a man that I'm yet to mention, in Ruben Amorim, and obviously he's less than a week away from arriving in Manchester. Many people expect that he's going to bring the same philosophy that he's had in Sporting, of playing with a 3 back and 4 across midfield and 3 up front, in whatever sort of a variation, whether it's 2 wide players accommodating a striker, or with Manchester United set up in the available players that we have, you could very well be looking at 2 10s sitting behind a striker. With Garnacho's desire to get the ball, to run at defenders, to break channels, to utilise that, I suppose some people look at it as greed, but other people could look at it as a desire to be able to maximise his time on the football and generate as many goal contributions as he can. When you look at a 20-year-old with such talent, with such obvious confidence and such belief in his own ability, and then you have a 39-year-old manager in Amorim coming in who has been known to harness, embrace, and really take youth under his wing and try to bring it to the next level. For me, despite all of the toxicity and the negativity that's surrounding Garnacho and whatever people want to perceive, I see the match of Garnacho and Amorim being an absolute match made in heaven, alongside the likes of Menu, Rasmus Højlund, Amad Diallo, even going down to the likes of Toby Collier, Harry Amas coming through. So many talented youngsters that Amorim is going to absolutely relish being able to work with them on a daily basis and mould them to live into his tactical structure. Do you think this is something he's looking at, and more so not necessarily ignoring the veterans like Bruno, but really looking at this academy and those young players that have made the breakthrough to first team, and that he can take them to the next level?
Absolutely. At least on paper, he seems the perfect fit. Other managers, look, I mean, Erik ten Hag was pretty much coming in with the same pedigree and with the same reputation of nurturing younger players. What he did at Ajax multiple times, building multiple teams, was fantastic. And at that point, we thought the same. I really don't want to sound negative whatsoever. I try to be positive as I can, through every single post that I make on the socials. But at the same time, I want to keep expectations, at a decent level. Personally, I think he will do well, but at the same time, I think it will take him quite a bit of time. The psychological aspect of this is something that I'm very much interested in, and I'm doing a lot of reading on that. And it's not something that I don't think many people often talk about, but I think psychologically we are in a very fragile level at every single stage. For a club of this stature to be at this level and constantly be linked with failure instead of success for more than a decade, it takes its toll on the players. And at the end of the day, we are products of our environments. So, in a way, I'm kind of glad that we have the likes of Sir Dave Brailsford, who's recently coming to the team, and he's very clued up about these things, and he will, I'm sure, try his best to put that aspect of things right. But again, with a lot of things, it will take a lot of time. Um, I see nothing wrong with Amorim right now. Like you said, he's young, he's hungry, and somebody like that coming to a club like United, they get to put their own stamp on everything and make a little bit of a name for themselves. To me, he seems hungry enough and he seems passionate enough. Um, that's the major thing that I see as a difference between perhaps him and, let's say, Eric Ten Hag. Pedigree-wise, I think they're very, very similar. They, their win percentage at their previous clubs, their history with the youth, but him having that extra bit of hunger, like visible hunger and passion that shows in every game. I think that's going to be huge. If he can get a little bit of that into the players, I don't think Eric Ten Hag could put fire in the bellies of the players. I think that was a little bit of an issue with him. But I'm hoping Amorim can do that. Tactically, look, managers, I think a lot is expected of them overall. And at the end of the day, in my mind, a manager's job is to stop less goals being conceded and score more goals at the end of the day. So in terms of tactics and these kind of things, in my mind, and please correct me if I'm being like extremely naive in terms of tactics, it's a lot more simpler than a lot of people think. And for me personally, psychology is a massive, massive part of it. Sir Alex himself, quite a few times, used to say management is someone else's word. I call it psychology. That's the area for me that needs addressing. And if you can address that and you can put the fire back into the bellies of the players again and get them playing, they don't all need to be world-class players. Play for something, play for each other, play for the badge, be hungry enough to win, and have the world against United back mentality back at the club. And we're going to see a whole different Manchester United, irrespective of, I think, to a level who their manager is.
There's so many ways that I can expand out on what you're saying. One of the prime examples that you're looking at, if you go back as far as Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was very, very clear in stating that his entire role was to motivate his footballers and to build camaraderie and to help to motivate them while Michael Carrick was on the training field. And you look at the likes of Ruben Amorim alongside Eric Ten Hag. This is something I've been very, very vocal about. Both share a very similar story in that they were incredibly successful in their own clubs, in their own domestic leagues, had a brand of football that made them top of the list as to why Manchester United wanted to bring that manager to the football club. As I've been saying for several weeks on this podcast, Eric Ten Hag did not become a bad manager overnight, but maybe the differentiation between their ages and Ten Hag's kind of staunch necessity to focus on figures, analytics and tactics, in that he was a tactical nerd. Maybe he failed to get the most out of the players by being able to have a deep, solid connection with them. All you have to do is look at what Benny McCarthy said in his interview in South Africa afterwards, where he said that tactically, really, unless you're looking at Pep Guardiola, there's nobody else I can think about that's going to go in there and do a better job. You've also hit the nail on the head by specifying the fact that these footballers, and to elaborate on it, they're human beings. I mean, maybe outside of Real Madrid, there's nothing on earth for a professional footballer like playing for Manchester United, because the scrutiny that they come under on a daily, weekly basis is absolutely hideous. Every single thing they do is put under a microscope and is dissected in a public place on a daily basis. So if they give one form of a bad performance, Reza, take Joshua Zirkzee, for example. This is a guy who's arrived at the football club as the Serie A Young Player of the Year in a new country, a new climate, a new football team, a new way of thinking in the melting pot that is Old Trafford. And I say this every single week. He's already being disregarded as a waste of money and somebody who is not good enough to play at the highest level. Yet, for anybody who is a purveyor of the continental game and saw any of Bologna last year, you'd realise just how much of a good footballer this guy is. But because he's not hitting the ground running and no Manchester United footballer is given an opportunity to bed in, he's ultimately a failure. So maybe with Amorim, the fact that he's still in his 30s He is, by all accounts, supposed to be a very, very approachable guy. You can see in his brief press conferences addressing Manchester United, even after that amazing win that he had against Manchester City in the Champions League, he was very quick to come out and say we were lucky. You know, he's trying to play down his own accomplishments because he doesn't want to arrive in Manchester United and have everybody think that he's just going to flick a switch and everything is going to be okay. Because it's not. And this is something that I've been trying to get across to people for quite some time, that as good as this guy is and as much talent as he has, very similar to Eric Ten Hag, he has to be given time. He has to be given patience to work with this new best-in-class backroom team to establish a perfect framework that will allow Manchester United to excel and grow to the next level. I want to move away from him slightly and just onto one other player who I feel is going to really, really benefit inside in his system because we've already seen it, and that's Noussair Mazraoui. We spoke about him a little bit before this, and the new man, he's been an absolute revelation. We've got everything from a range of inspiring performances across multiple positions on the field that not only highlight his versatility and his quality and his technical ability, but his desire and his want to be able to help the squad. I think not only is he an asset today, but I do believe he can be a very valuable cog for Amorim as he comes into this 3-4-3 system that we've discussed. And furthermore, and it's something that I take an awful lot of joy in, I think his performances and just how quickly he's established in Manchester have really eliminated this cut price idea that Bayern don't get rid of good players. Just how impressed have you been with this man in Manchester so far?
Amazingly impressed. Honestly, I think he's been perhaps the best signing that we've had since Bruno Fernandes in terms of impact on the team. He's been fantastic. His work rate is phenomenal. His intelligence, I think, is a huge asset, and it's something that we have been lacking. It kind of goes back to the psychological side again that I mentioned a few times. In terms of intelligence, I think he's fantastic. Bruno Fernandes is a very intelligent player as well, but aside from these two, I really can't think of too many other people at that level that we have in the team. So for me, he's ticking all the boxes. Tireless work rate. He's been absolutely fantastic. I think he's got a few goals in him as well. And for the first time, I think Bayern made a huge mistake. And based on what I've read, actually, they've sold him for non-football reasons. But their loss is a huge gain for us, and it's not something that often happens with Bayern Munich.
Couldn't have happened to a nicer club. And that brings us on to tomorrow evening's Europa League meeting with PAOK and an opportunity to earn a first continental victory in what is now over a year, Reza. We have good omens ahead of this, though, and it will be a first meeting between the sides. Just to put this to you, right, because it does read well. United have won all 6 of our home outings against Greek opposition by an aggregate score of 20-1. Furthermore, in PAOK, even though they're contending very well in the Greek Super League, I believe they're currently second. It's a side that they only have a solitary draw in their previous 6 away outings in the Europa League, suffering 5 defeats in that time. I believe you have to go back to 2018 for their last victory. The real appalling thing is that United have equalled their worst record without a win in a major European competition, which is 6. And we're going back a little over 40 years since we managed that. However, notably, Manchester United have never gone 7 games without a win. So I'm pretty confident Ruud van Nistelrooy will not want to be the man that achieves that one. How do you see this one going?
Don't, please, Sean, don't. I honestly don't know, mate. That is the honest answer. I really don't know. So many games we've come across, without being disrespectful, at least on paper, lesser opposition, and it's gone the opposite way. And we've talked about, the records and how we've never lost against them, and we've always scored this many goals, and it's gone the opposite way. I'm not superstitious at all. But look, at this stage, I just want to sit down and try to enjoy the game and not have any kind of expectations. I honestly just want to see the guys perform and score a few goals. Again, on paper, yes, it should be a comfortable win. But like you said, it's been a Jekyll and Hyde story. We just don't know, what kind of a mood the guys are going to be in. Are they going to, is it going to be more of the same, or are they going to turn up and score 6, 7, 8 goals against them? It's honestly impossible to tell. On paper, yes, it should be a very comfortable win. But aside from that, really have no idea.
I understand. I appreciate the apprehension when we've witnessed so much capitulation over the last year. I've lost track of the amount of times that Manchester United have managed to take a 2-goal lead in Europe and then just give it away. It's actually astonishing how many times it's happened. And when you're looking at what we've had this year with Porto, it just appears to be capitulation after capitulation. However, we're looking at the flank side of this new format now in the Europa League. And when you've got so many different games in this new format with so much football to play, we've almost got through, not to disregard any of the future opponents, but we've got through the real kind of tricky encounters that we were in placing in terms of going to Turkey and going to Portugal. And this very much represents an extremely winnable fixture, regardless of how poor things have been, Reza. And I know it stems back quite some time and we can't take anything for granted. We've previously done so with the likes of Copenhagen over in Denmark. But this is a fixture we really should be winning. And when you're looking at an 8 o'clock fixture tomorrow evening, under the lights at Old Trafford, continental football, a group of Ruud van Nistelrooy-led footballers with the likes of Rasmus Højlund keen to really, really get off the mark and really add to his tally this season. Marcus Rashford, Garnacho, I'm sure, will be chomping at the bit to get in and to just put one against all his naysayers. I'm going to do to you what I do to everybody else at this time. And it's awkward and it's difficult, but I want the score tomorrow evening, Reza.
4-0. To United.
Well, that is a lot higher than I was expecting. I like it. I appreciate it. It was a game I was actually supposed to be going over to, and unfortunately, I've not been able to do so. So I will have to look at it from afar. And it's going to be a real test for these frontmen to see if they can actually start putting away some of these chances that we've been building week after week after week. As you know, and any listener knows on this show, I'm a massive fan of Rasmus Højlund. And I really believe that this man has all of the tools and all of the arsenal to deliver and to lead this line. The players just need to give him the ball more in attacking outlets. You saw, even against Chelsea, it was half of a fraction of an opportunity when the ball got played over, and the way he took it down in his toe and earned that penalty, it's sensational. It's brilliant frontman work, and I think he's going to be key tomorrow. I also think he's going to be key in moving forward for the likes of Amorim coming in, because he can play that frontman system. With that as well, a man I'd really like to see getting in the action tomorrow is Joshua Zirkzee, as I've said. He is a guy who really needs to get a couple of goals under his belt, because it builds into that whole psychological aspect that you're making reference to. And if he could go out there, get a couple of goals, you could see him rise another 2 foot off the ground, and that can only bode well going into Leicester and everything else into the international break thereafter. This has been time well spent, and I must say, of all the conversations we've had off air, I very much enjoyed this, and giving you an opportunity to let the listeners understand the man behind all the imagery, the artwork. What have you got coming up?
In terms of upcoming things, I'm trying to get into writing a little bit more, and get my own thoughts and feelings down on paper, so to say, share it with everybody, and have a good old discussion about it. I've started doing that a little bit with the recent threads that I've been doing, but I am kind of interested in doing more longer versions of it, and we've briefly discussed it before. I'm very much interested in telling stories about the history of our club. So the piece that I'm writing right now, I've actually been working on for a very long time, is about Louis Roca and his impact on the club. And in my mind, he's literally just shaped everything that our club is. He was responsible for the youth policy. I know a lot of people think it was Matt Busby, but he was actually the person who put that into place. He was responsible for bringing Matt Busby to the club. So it's a very interesting figure that amazingly not many United fans know about. So I've been working on a very long piece to try to shed as much light on his character and what he's done for the club for a very long while. And to be honest, quite a few fans, since I did a portrait of him, I think it was around July, August time, and I put it on the socials, a lot of the older fans have come forward and they've actually really helped out with pictures and materials and their own stories about him that I've heard from family and people who have actually worked with his family in writing their own versions of his story. they've all been very, very kind enough to help with this piece as well. So that's something that's going to be upcoming. I also mentioned something about, quite a few times, about the psychological aspect that I'm very much keen on. I'm actually just putting on the finishing touches to another piece on social media toxicity and the mechanisms of negativity on Manchester United. That if I manage to get it done tonight, it might be up tonight. If not, then tomorrow. But yeah, the psychological aspect of things, I'm very, very much interested in looking into a little bit more. And just to clarify, these kind of issues for the fan base. And, when we sit here talking about things, people have to remember that we are also part of the fan base. We're not trying to look down at anyone when they say, the fan base is being negative or the fan base is being impatient. We are also, part of that fan base. We are very impatient. We cannot wait to see our team, get back to the top. We can't wait to see, Old Trafford roaring again with excitement over, big scoring games. And we are a part of that. But I don't think we look at the psychological side of things enough. I've likened a portion of the current generation, and I've named them the TikTok generation because of the impatientness. And their way of thinking is that if I'm not entertained by something, or if I don't think this is good enough, I can just swipe it away, and then there's going to be potentially something better and more entertaining that's going to scratch an itch for me if I just swipe it away and make it like an instant demand. And that kind of mentality kind of affects many aspects of life. And supporting a football club is just a small side of it. And I see it all the time. You mentioned Zarski. My Facebook page, I mentioned something about him actually being a huge potential based on what we've seen of him so far. He's a very young lad, and I've had quite a few, I wouldn't say hateful messages towards him, but it was basically along the same old thing that he's not good enough. How many goals has he scored? I look at it, if you know the player, if you're looking at his age, if you're looking at his history, we bought potential. We haven't bought someone to come in and start scoring goals with us. We haven't bought, Ruud van Nistelrooy to come in and, score as many goals as he did and hit the ground running. He's been brought for a specific style of play. He's the kind of player that we don't have, who can operate in small spaces and create chances. He is not going to be a regular goal scorer to what you expect. So putting that much pressure on someone like him, right now the club is a pressure cooker. And, taking away like any kind of confidence that this kid has built over the last few years. He's come to this club on a high, and he's had a handful of games, and he still managed to get, a couple of goals, a couple of assists. And honestly, it's not bad going, given where we are and how the shape of the team is, how the confidence is. He's done pretty well. The expectations are, there, but I think fans on social media should realize the power of words a little bit more and how far it can go. Understand it comes from an innocent place for some people, but there are bigger guys out there, bigger accounts who are just not responsible with the power that they have in terms of the number of followers and the number of influencers, and everything is just clicks for them. So I'm hoping if I kind of dive into the psychological side of things and show the impact that it can have on a human level and how it can impact performance, perhaps if it gets read enough, even if 5 people read it and, mention it to 5 other people, and those people go and mention it to 5 other people, it will at least, make people see things a little bit differently and understand how much impact this kind of negativity on social media can have on the players and the club.
Anybody wants to read either of these threads that you're going publishing, what is the easiest way for them to do so? How can they get in contact with you, and how can they read them?
Easiest way, all my socials are with the same handle, at UTDArts1. Same on Twitter, same on Facebook. Everything is going to be published on both platforms. And if you happen to like any of my artwork, in particular the ones that I've done for the Manchester Munich Memorial Foundation, where all the profits will go to charity, and you can find them on my website, utdarts.com.
Absolutely brilliant. I couldn't recommend everybody listening to go and try that any further. This guy truly is the real deal. His work is amazing, and the message that he's trying to get through is completely valid. And if anybody wants to get in touch with us across any social, you can do so at theatre_of_red. You can visit the website at theatre-of-red.com. And if you are still here, kindly subscribe. And if you want to leave a review, that would be great. Each one of them will increase our footprint, help to generate more traction, and give us more of an opportunity to create more weekly episodes just like this one. Thank you for your time. Hopefully we will get over that Euro hump, and I'll catch you all next week.